to Modern Mystics with me and my brother Nicolas.
Hi.
So we have some announcements that maybe we can share with them.
Yeah, we thought we'd just let you guys know now and then probably at the end of the show as well, just as a reminder. But yeah, Modern Mystics will be still going on, at least for now, for each Monday at 9 a.m. Mountain Standard Time. But actually with the First Step with Jeffrey and Wake Up with Jason show, those two shows, plus From the Bottom Up, which was supposed to air season 2 this Saturday. That will actually be taking an additional pause or a longer pause than originally anticipated. So yeah, those 3 shows will be paused until February at this point. We just need more time with our new studio to get set up, and it just feels overall most supportive for us right now to have those shows just be paused until then. So just be on the lookout for those shows, but it'll be in February at this point.
Yeah, in the new studio, and the next Modern Mystic show might be in the new studio.
Yeah,
which you guys probably heard about.
We don't want to get the promises up too high, but at this point, if it's Jesus's plan, then we'll be in the new studio for next Monday.
Yeah, if it's under Christ's control. Because one of the topics that I was thinking of maybe talking about on this show is like control, and specifically like letting go of control, and maybe some of the authority problem. Because I know for me, like the whole control thing has been, like letting go of control has been one of the big themes in my mind recently. And yeah, just even thinking back to regular life, it's like, it's like for me, I think a lot of the childhood or through high school and stuff, I don't know, I was like just zombied out, and like I don't even know if I had any kind of clear direction or anything, and just like completely being run by the unconscious patterns in the mind, all the beliefs that are down there that we're not aware of, and then yeah, eventually it's like I needed a huge kick, like in Inception. They needed, like the movie Inception, they needed big kicks in order to wake up from levels of the dream, which is a nice metaphor because it feels like there's levels in this dream too, just because I was like so unconscious back then with these beliefs running me and just being a zombie. And then yeah, like when I was like 16, I got a lot of like panic attacks and depression all of a sudden, and that was like this kick that led me eventually to finding like Eckhart Tolle, and then Disappearance of the Universe, and then The Course in Miracles. And then so that felt like it was like one layer or one level or whatever. I got a kick from that level to one level higher.
Got a kick out of it.
Yeah, I got a kick out of it. And then it felt like, I'd be reading the Course and then washing away the fear in my mind, and then the next level almost seemed to be I uncovered like all these like desires, and actually seeing like, oh wow, I might have seemed to be like this zombie or whatever, but there was actually a lot of like control and a lot of desires and preferences down there that was just like under a lot of other layers of like apathy and repression and whatever. So as I started to do the Course, it felt like those layers got uncovered, and then I got in touch with basically the control, the authority problem, the desires, and then from there it felt like, I would just be, I got so ambitious all of a sudden, as you guys know, and got into the business, and then 6 years of going to the gym, and I even remember like the feeling of going to the gym. So all this is like after the Course, and I remember I would be in the gym, and it was like, it's hard to explain because it's like energetically, but even like the reason why I was there, it was like, yeah, I'm gonna like make things happen, because it's like if I put the Course's thoughts to it at the time, the thoughts would have probably been like, yeah, like I made myself. This is my world. I can do like whatever I want with it. So I'm gonna make my body look how I want it to look. I'm gonna make a lot of money and buy the house and the cars that I want, and this and that. And obviously, it's like the whole thing with control is like there's only really two types of control. There's Christ control, which is involuntary, and that's, it's the Christ. Miracles happen, involuntary nature. And then the other type is the ego, is basically taking you hostage, has you enslaved. So there's like a common misconception or common belief, it feels like, even in the Course community, that it's like, yeah, there's my way, there's the ego, and then there's the Holy Spirit. But really, it's not my way or the highway. It's really just I'm either enslaved by the ego, hostage to the ego, or I'm under Christ's control and host to the Holy Spirit. So I feel like that's a huge thing that we always need to remember, because it's like, yeah, I want this, I want that, my life should go this way, I wanted the Lamborghini or whatever. And then if you think about like non-dual terms, it's like, who is the I that wants these things? Is it really like I want them, and then the ego is just this like terrible thing that's somewhere in my mind that makes all the bad things happen, but the good things that happen in the world, it's me. And then there's the Holy Spirit, which is like, yeah. So it just feels like, yeah, that's a really good reminder to have. It's like, okay, it's either the ego or the Holy Spirit. There's no like me. So, yeah, that feels like really important, because it's like even today's lesson, it's like lesson number 7 for the calendar lesson is I see only the past, which is like extremely powerful, because it always brings me back to the analogy that I always loved when I used to listen to Ken Wapnick a while back, and he would talk a lot about, and David does too actually, about the movie theater analogy, and how it's like, okay, lesson number 7, it's like I see only the past. So really it's like I'm just watching a movie that's already filmed and over with, and really the only question is, do I want to watch the movie with the ego, which basically means, do I want to deceive myself into believing and getting tricked into thinking that I'm actually in the movie, a character in the movie who reacts to everything that happens in the movie? Or do I want to step back and watch the movie with the Holy Spirit and be an observer in a detached state, so that nothing that actually happens in the movie on the screen will actually affect me? And more, it's like my mind is detached, so it has the strength of the Holy Spirit. So it's like the movie, like Being There, he was just be passersby, Jesus says. So
clueless, carefree, and cared for.
Yeah.
But that can only happen with like that deep sense of trust, that deep sense of like surrendering to, thy will be done, and actually realizing that it's only thy will that is like ever done. I kept hearing in my mind like about free will, because the same thing, there's this belief, like, yeah, I could see it for myself. Like some people believe in fate, and so some people like believe in like control, but a lot of times it's people believe in a mix of the two. But really, what I've come to see more and more for myself, and I feel like that's what the Course is pointing to, is really there is no free will in this world. Your your free will is in heaven, but free will is really like, yeah, your will is to be happy. That's it. It's not about actually decisions in form and how your life will turn out and what you should do here and there. Really, there's only this thought that we're ever in control in the moment, but it's just a confusion. It's what you said. Either we're under Christ's control, like we've given our mind over, aligned it with the Spirit, with the Holy Spirit, or we think we have control, which not true, and we've given our power over to the ego to being unconscious to fear. So that's the whole deal. Like, okay, just realizing where we think we actually have control, and then kind of handing that over, and giving that back to the Spirit. Like, put me back on the strings. There's a great video that used to be sold on the Living Miracles store. It was put me back on the strings, and I loved it. It felt just so sweet. I think even Resta, who was a musician that was traveling with David Hoffmeister for many years, like a couple decades ago, she had a song, I think, that was like "Put Me Back on the Strings." That was something that she always would like love to say. I feel is what I remember, and it just feels really sweet. Like, yeah, being a puppet for love. Allow myself to be so done through. Like, we just had that online retreat, Undoing the Doer, which is undoing the doer to be done through, and then, just undone. Where every action, every thought, everything you say, do, everything's in alignment with love. It's all coming from that same authentic place of love. And yet, how do we get there? There's a clearing out. There's a purification that's needed first. And only the Spirit knows the way, and knows seemingly what specifically needs to be cleared out at any given time. Anytime we've talked about this before, I think maybe on the last show, like, oh, I need to heal this. I think you were talking about wanting to watch like certain movies to like heal control or heal something else. And yet, I was sharing that I had done the same thing on different shows around like special relationship and all that. And it's, again, we can't control the healing. We can't control the curriculum. David said that many times. Like, you think you can control what path you're to follow. I'm going to do a little bit of A Course in Miracles, or I'm going to be kind of Christian, kind of Buddhist, kind of Hindu, It's like, no, actually, you don't even have control of the curriculum. It's already set. It's really just to surrender to whatever path it is that is for you. And one isn't really better than another. It's just to be lived fully for the authentic experience. Because even in A Course in Miracles, Jesus is telling us that, there is no, like a universal theology is impossible. He says that. But a universal experience is not only possible, it is inevitable. It's all about that universal experience. That's what we're all going for. That's what all religions and spiritualities are truly about. It's all about going for that true experience. That's what we're all in it together for. Just coming together. That's why we release that control, for that universal experience. Because why do we control? That's what I was like praying on. Like, what does it give us? Like, we think we gain some sort of safety, some sort of protection, joy and everything, because we think we know what makes us happy. But we're totally confused. There's that section you love reading, the confusion between pain and joy. We're actually just causing us more pain and pain. Because, it's funny. If you think of it like the script is written, it's just like this river just flowing right through, right? Just flowing right through. There might be like these rocks and things like that. And then you think of like a leaf, or like even an insect, or something that seems to be more alive. And it's like, okay, I'm going to go upstream, or I'm going to try and control this stream and make it go that. It's like, that's not going to work. You're only going to hurt yourself, You're only going to be disappointed, frustrated. It's like the stream is going this way. Your only job is actually to let go into it. You have no control. That's what we have to keep reminding ourselves. That's what I have to keep reminding myself. I have no control. In form, the only thing I can control, and I think this is what Jesus talks about, is the direction of my thinking. Who I decide to really line my mind up with. There, Jesus does tell us we have control. You have control over the direction of your thinking. So that's really the whole focus. That's where all our focus should be. Where is the direction of my thinking going? That's like the mind training right there, over and over again. Bring it back. Bring it back towards the Spirit.
Even you mentioned the going upstream thing, so I was thinking like, what animals do that? And then there's the salmon.
Yeah.
And even like the salmon struggles so hard to go up. Like it's such a pain. And then finally they make a jump and then a bear just grabs them. It's like, why? It's like, we don't have to think like that anymore. And even I was on mysticalmindtraining.org, one of our programs, and I was in the control and authority problem section looking through it. And there's that movie about, what was it about? No, Imagine That.
Imagine That.
I've never actually seen it, but there's a clip
with Eddie Murphy,
MMT in the very beginning where he's like walking through this big business building and there's narration and it's like he thinks he can control his world, and I don't know what, those kind of things the narrator was saying, and he walks through. And then of course when you're trying to control your own world, it's like that's authority problem. And then it says in the course, you project that authority problem out, that delusion, and then it looks like there's other ones that are literally fighting you for your authorship. And then in that clip, it's like he runs into his competitor, and his competitor, like business competitor, he's like, yeah, we're just like two salmon swimming upstream, aren't we? And it's funny. I was just watching that yesterday, and so yeah, it's like, and it's like it's like, there's, with the control, there's a lot of anger too. Like, so it's like, yeah, there is like this clearing out that needs to happen. And really the best way to do that is just by listening and following. Because I know for me, it's like, we have projects here in this community that we live in, and we use them for mind training and releasing these emotions. And yeah, it's like, what would you have me do now, Holy Spirit? Like, what's the guidance for me now? Like, I know if I'm not working on a project that I'm supposed to be working on in the moment, and we use the terms like priority, like our priority project, which really just means, what would you have me do now? Is this what you would have me do now? That equals priority. So it's like, when I'm working on a project that's actually not the priority in the moment, it's not actually what is guided, then I start to feel like, I feel tired, or some kind of lack will hit me. And then that's when it's like, okay, I'm just going to stop and pause and just pray here and like see if anything else comes to mind. And then just yesterday, I was working on something, and then I started to feel like pretty tired, and I was like, okay. And then I just prayed, and I was like, okay, listen to the guidance. And I just heard like, check in with Jessica. Because right now, like, we have a buddy system here, and I'm Jess's buddy. Like, we come together for support and projects and her areas in the house and stuff. And yeah, so I just heard check in with Jessica. And then I started to question that. I'm like, what do you mean? Like, about what? Like, and it's like, really, it's not to question the guidance. It's just to do it, because we don't have the big picture. It doesn't actually matter what the reason is, It's like, it's just like, listen, follow, because it makes you happy. Because you're hosting the Holy Spirit in that moment. That's why it makes you happy. You're identified with the Holy Spirit in that moment. So, yeah, I was like, why? And then like, but after like 20 seconds or something, Jessica decides to come into the room. She's like, hey, Andy, can we connect? I was like, oh, wow, that's cool. Like, you can't mess it up, But yeah, it's like getting into the more of a pattern of like, okay, I heard something, just go do it, because it's the guidance. Like, don't question it, just go do it. It's gonna make me happy. That's all that really matters. And I remember on like our first episode of Modern Mystics or something, we're talking about guidance. It was one of the early episodes. That was a really fun episode, and I was just mentioning, that whole analogy where it's like, yeah, the Holy Spirit literally sees all of time and space because he's outside of it. Like, he's beyond it. Like in Interstellar, when he falls down that vortex, and he can see like the past and the future past, because it's really all the past, like today's lesson. And yeah, so the Holy Spirit can see all of that. So and he can see every single hypothetical possible. Like, if you're thinking, oh, should I take a sip of water now, or should I like pick up my course book now, or should I go to work today, or whatever. It's like the reason why you should ask the Holy Spirit and listen and follow is because he can see the outcomes of every single decision possible, and we can't. So who are you going to ask? You know, the ego, who you think you are, or which is the same, or are you going to ask the Holy Spirit, who can literally direct you into the best possible outcome for your mind? And even the form a lot of times might seem to reflect that. Like I remember in Gary Renard's books, he missed a movie showing or something, and then Arden and Persa were like, he was like complaining about it, and Arden and Persa were like, yeah, actually, if you would have made that movie time, you would have gotten like hit by a car or something. So don't worry, like, we're glad you followed the guidance or whatever. And that's like a metaphor, of course, but it's just cool to see that it's like, I can't trust the ego's voice.
Because it's like, imagine seeing with like a straw, you know, you're just like, okay, this is my life. I know what I like best, and yeah, I know what makes me happy. See, you got such this tiny perception. This is what the ego mind is looking through. It's got this very filtered, tiny, constrained perception filled with limiting beliefs. And then you can imagine like, you know, like a hawk over the sky, you know, just looking down, seeing everything. And here you are, just this tiny little, I know what makes me happy. And you know, who are you going to trust? The one who can see it all, the Holy Spirit, above it all, seeing above the battleground, which is really how our, you know, it's a metaphor that Jesus uses in A Course in Miracles, but I would really say it's not that far off. Most of our lives can really feel like a battleground, and depending on certain parts of maybe the world where you may live, it can be externalized even a lot more so in that way. It's like it really is this battleground, and so we really need this one who is transcended above it all, who is not involved with it, can see kind of what we're seeing but doesn't really believe in any of it, has no judgment, has no, you know, fixed, unhelpful concepts of right and wrong, can really just see the big picture and like, okay, this is what would be most helpful here, is orchestrating it all. I know one term we've used that has always felt fun is like JC Central, you know, Jesus Christ Central. It's like JC Central is over it all, is orchestrating all the ones who are to meet, like Jessica coming to your room, okay, like they need to meet, okay, Andy's not playing his part, okay, so let's bring in Jessica. There's a joining that needs to happen, you know. And then, you know, I feel like I've felt that so many times where, like, I won't even remember, like, I'll have a certain feeling, oh, I need to do this, and then I forget to write it down or forget to say it. And then it's so cool, you still can't mess it up, because then I get some random prompt to like, maybe it's get a snack or something that's just kind of out of nowhere, and I'm like, and I'll follow it, and in following it, I'll either remember or something there will trigger it, but like, oh, the original prompt is brought back in, but it's like, oh my God, I had totally forgotten about it. If he hadn't have brought me here, I like, you know, it's happened to me in so many different ways where it's like I can't mess it up. Things I forget to write down, or things like I forget to say, or it's like I keep being given back the opportunities. Like JC Central is over it all. Just keeps working all the people around, keep moving them around, and the situations.
Yeah.
It's
or
amazing.
someone will come to you and say something, or even like remind you.
Yeah. Like so many things. Oh my God, like these big things I could have totally missed. And it's like these in the moments, like things that either people say or I say, and like, oh yeah, right, that thing, you know, I don't have any good specific examples right now, but it's a feeling that I've had so many times, and it just brings you into this wonderment, like, oh my God, it's true.
Yeah, well, I can think of an example like yesterday, like, so Jessica's like over the house, and especially the kitchen, and there were a lot of little projects in the kitchen yesterday, like labeling things and reorganizing and stuff like that. And Susanna was kind of showing Jessica like, yeah, we can do this, and then we can do this, and this. And then I was just in the office, and Jessica was like, "Hey Andy, yeah, I'm finished with the project," and then and then she was like, "Yeah, I did all this. I think I got it all." And then for some reason, I can't say for some reason, I got a prompt, go check this one specific part of the whole project. Like there were like, there were tons of different aspects of it, but I was like, go check this one part of it. I was like,
Yeah.
okay, I'll just go to it. It's like, I don't know what anything's for. So I just walk over and I open the fridge and I look for this one label. I was like, oh, okay, it's not there. So then I went and I reminded Jessica. I was like, oh, and she was like, oh, okay, great, thanks for reminding me. It's like, yeah, so it's like, you can't really mess it up because your brother's there. And even if you don't seem to have like mighty companions around you, maybe you're driving, see a billboard, radio's on, someone will say something, your mom will say something, anything really. I remember like, I didn't have any mighty companions in the first year of starting the course. Actually, I guess I had my aunt, but I was working in this gym, and I've told this story before, but this parable, but I always really love it because it just shows that like your mighty companions are everywhere, and really like you just have to follow the guidance, and you're fully taken care of, and Holy Spirit can speak through anyone. Because I was working at this gym, and basically this new lady came one day, this Hispanic lady, and I felt something interesting with her. Like she was like a little different or something, or I don't know. Maybe we knew each other in the last lifetime. Who knows? and and then one day, this other man was in the room, and he told me something that really like got me like triggered. Like I got really annoyed, and then he left the room, and I was like, "Urgh." And so the Hispanic lady was there, and I was just expressing to her, and I was like, yeah, I can't believe he said that, et cetera, whatever. And we had never talked about spirituality together ever, and I never mentioned the course, never mentioned anything. And then she started to respond to my expression. She just said some things, and then all of a sudden, like, she stops and she just looks straight at me, and she's like, remember the source. And then she just like walks away. And I was like, it like took me a little, but I was like, whoa, like, did she really just say that? And it was like mind blowing, because it's like, the Holy Spirit can reach you through any medium. Even we were at this retreat in North Carolina like 7 years ago or something, our very first one with David.
Oh, the gathering,
the gathering, yeah. And then I remember I was asking Helena at the time, and I was like, how can I do this thing? I don't know. And she's like, this awakening thing or whatever. She's like, the Holy Spirit will use what you like to speak through you. Music, movies. Yeah, it's just like, just follow that guidance. And then the result of that guidance, or just a nice metaphor, is the part that David always loved to read in a lot of his videos. It's in chapter 14, Teaching for Truth, and then the section, Your Function in the Atonement. And it's paragraph 6. It says, actually, maybe even before paragraph 6, paragraph 5, it starts off saying, and Ricky read this actually, it says, before you make any decisions for yourself, remember that you have decided against your function in heaven, and then consider carefully whether you want to make decisions here. It's like, okay. And then it says, your function here is only to decide against deciding what you want, in recognition that you do not know. How then can you decide what you should do? Leave all decisions to the one who speaks for God and for your function as he knows it. And then, so will he teach you to remove the awful burden you have laid upon yourself by loving not the Son of God and trying to teach him guilt instead of love. And then, skipping to paragraph 6, it says, when you have learned how to decide with God, all decisions become as easy and as right as breathing. There is no effort, and you will be led as gently as if you are being carried down a quiet path in summer. Yeah, isn't that nice? And then paragraph 8, it says, your task is not to make reality, which basically feels like that's what control and the authority problem is. It's like, okay, God, I made my own world, and this is real, you know? It's like, I had the power. And it's like, no, you can't really go beyond everything. So it says, your task is not to make reality. It is here without your making, but not without you. You who have tried to throw yourself away and valued God so little, hear me speak for him and for yourself. You cannot understand how much your Father loves you, for there is no parallel in your experience of the world to help you understand it. There is nothing on earth with which it can compare, and nothing you have ever felt apart from him resembles it ever so faintly. You cannot even give a blessing in perfect gentleness. Would you know of one who gives forever, and who knows of nothing except giving? Yeah, even for these shows, it's like a constant practice of like, okay, like for this show before we started, I set the goal, like I want this show to be like involuntary.
Mm-hmm.
And then even Tony Robbins, in a video that I watched with him and what's the other guy's name? Richard? No.
No.
Okay.
Yeah,
Maybe
it's
okay.
blanking.
He's a famous actor, but they were in like a little interview together. And then Tony Robbins was saying, yeah, every time I go on stage, you know, before I go up on stage, it's like I have to get out of my own way. It's like that's how I can speak. Like I have to get out of my own way. And that's really, he's putting himself under Christ's control. Like that's being put on the puppet.
He doesn't use those words, but that's really what he's doing.
He did say, oh, I have to get out of my own way.
Yeah.
But yeah, the Christ control part.
Yeah, it's like step back and let, you know, I will take the second place to gain the first. You know, step back, let him lead the way. It's, yeah, I mean, there's so many of these beautiful metaphors, or I've heard Jason talk about it on one of his shows before, just even that that short story, or I don't think it's a poem, but it's called like Footprints in the Sand or on the Beach. And yeah. Yeah, if I had, I'd read it right now, but I almost want to like look it up. But basically, I'll just share the gist of it. It was just, yeah, this man is walking on the beach, and I guess he's in a dream, and he's seeing like his whole life is like symbolized as these footprints on the beach, and he sees that there's these two sets of footprints, and it's basically him and Jesus that was like with him. But then he notices, yeah, I used to cry every time I read this. He notices that during the most difficult parts of his life, there's only one set of footprints. And, you know, he's in this conversation with Jesus in this dream, and he's like, I don't get it. You said you would always be with me, but, you know, in the hardest parts of my life, you know, you said you'd always be with me, but here you clearly were not. There's only one set of footprints. And then Jesus tells him, well, actually, it was during those times that I carried you. Yeah, because I've felt that in my own life. Like sometimes I'd be very surprised that I'd still be here. You know, like I really thought I wouldn't last this long. Actually, for the longest time when I was a kid, for whatever reason, not sure why, but I never thought I'd live very long. You know, I never thought I could never really picture myself as like 60, 40, whatever years old. It's like I just couldn't do it. For me, it always felt like, I don't know, there's like a time limit. Like, I never thought I had very long. And, yeah, so I don't know if that somehow sped up, like, maybe my awakening or my thoughts or so. I don't know. I was always kind of contemplating throughout my life, although I never thought I was like really doing anything. I didn't have any spiritual context that I was aware of. And so I just remember certain very difficult moments and like how did I get through that? And it's like it was through grace, you know, through the grace of God, through the grace of the Spirit. Like I really don't feel like I have any other explanation, because I felt like I was in full resistance, full resistance. Felt like I was making all the wrong decisions, basically choosing to be unhappy, choosing to be the victim, and yet somehow through it all I still like popped through into the miracle, and that feels like yeah, it just feels like, pure grace for me. And like I love those movies of brotherhood. And the other theme that I've always loved, that always, I always cry and get emotional with, is like these movies that show you can't mess it up. Yeah, I mean, the main first one that comes to mind is Deja Vu by, I think, Henry Jaglom. It's a movie, it's like from the 90s, I think. And it's like a relationship movie.
It's
and
beautiful.
You've seen it?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, I saw it for the first time like a year or two ago, and just seeing how it's like they seem to be making like every wrong decision or something, and it's just like diverting, and still with all of it, it's like these two that it's like the script is written, they're meant to be together, you just can't mess it up. It's like they still end up together in the end, even though everything has been chosen, and even consciously chosen, like against what is even in their heart, what they feel to go with. It's like, it's even consciously chosen wrong, and it still works out perfectly. Yeah, things get a little more bumpy or whatnot, but it still all works together for good. That's what Jesus tells us. All things work together for good. And there is no exception to this except in the ego's judgment. So, that's what I felt to share.
Thank you. It's like all we have to do is like hands off, really.
Yeah, and you'll feel. I mean, if there's like an openness somewhere in your heart, somewhere in your mind, to be led, that you want to be happy, and even a lot of these times, like, yeah, you may not even be aware of it, but that's what's going on underneath. It may even be like an unconscious prayer, so to speak. But if there's somewhere there, then you will feel like it will start to become more and more obvious when it is you're not following basically your heart, following the Spirit. When you're following fear instead, it will become too painful. It will become too uncomfortable. You will choose, for right-mindedness, for the Spirit, to be happy. You will choose to be happy. There's really not a pressure to it. All I feel like is our message really for ourselves, and what Jesus is sharing is just that you don't have to delay. Even if you seem to choose delay, consciously or not, Spirit works with us wherever we are. There's nothing the Spirit can't handle. In every single circumstance, there is always a way we can be reached. So I just feel like there's never really a time pressure, but it's just you will feel more and more that you don't need to delay. And that's been our message for ourselves, really. Like, we don't need to delay, you know. That's what we just keep reminding ourselves. That's all it's for. Yeah, we can be happy now.
Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you, Nicolas. You feel complete.
Yeah, I didn't know I'd be saying that.
Yeah, that was fun. That was great. Thank you, guys, and maybe we'll be in the new studio. We'll see. Christ control, hands off.
Christ. I
On
almost
the
wanted to
puppet
go
strings.
like this, but it's more what you said. Don't cross the fingers. Release them.
Can't do this healing myself. Yeah. So that's what I want to remind myself. You know, it's like I can't do this. Like, really, like myself. I can't heal, control. I can't control the healing of my control. And yeah, so
Of myself, I can do nothing.
that's my prayer for the going forward.
Mm.
To just step back and not try to control the awakening, not try to control anything, and then let up whatever needs to come up around that control. Anger, apathy, like whatever, the emotions, and just keep on following those prompts. Reinforces it every time.
Yeah, it has to be authentic healing. It has to be really, I mean, that's been our experience. It's, I don't know if I should really use the word have to, but that has been my experience, and I feel like it's been yours too. You know, it's just, it's through the darkness to the light. It's like, it's, you know, you gotta face that anger. You gotta face that control. You can't just skip over, oh, I don't have any control. I'm under Christ. I mean, maybe, but at least our experience has been, you have to see actually where you're trying to control. It's got to be that authentic awakening for it to be consistent, you know, for it to be like a real experience. So.
And how can you tell, like, the one right use of judgment? How do you feel right now? How do I feel right now?
Mm.
If I don't feel good, okay, Holy Spirit, what would you have me do? Listen, follow. If I feel good, listen, follow.
Yeah.
It's always listen, follow.
It makes it that simple.
Yeah. Very simple.
No matter what, you know.
Listen, follow.
Listen, follow. Yeah. Pray, listen, follow. Stop, drop, and roll.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, guys. We'll see you next week at Monday mornings with Modern Mystics, 9 a.m. Mountain Standard Time. And just another reminder that Jeffrey's 2 shows and Jason's,
Or no, Jeffrey's show. Yeah.
Jeffrey's
Basically,
2 shows and Jason's 2 shows are paused until February.
And, well, I just will say, I think the last step, though, is there's not really a time determined for it. I don't know if that will start in February or not. Mm-hmm. That one's even more, like, on pause. We're just seeing what evolves with it.
Stay tuned to Spiri.ai, our website,
Yeah.
On the TV page, and you'll see all the shifts and schedules there. So.
That's the best place to go for your information.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Nicolas.
Thanks, Andy.